Brought to you by Lister Pros TV, streaming from Tempe, Arizona. And we're live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, Jordan Nielsen here, host of Real Estate Pros on Lister Pros TV. And today we are at Guild Mortgage in Tucson, Arizona with the one and only Larry Miles from KLPX, also known as Larry Hillyard.
Yes, sir.
Of Keller Williams. Is it all Southern Arizona?
Yes,
Keller Williams, Southern Arizona. So for those watching that don't know who you are, we'll give you a couple minutes to introduce yourself, a little bit about your background. Obviously, you come from the radio broadcast.
Yes.
And then, so we'll let you introduce yourself. I don't know why I'm trying to introduce you.
Larry Miles Hillyard. Larry Hillyard is the real name. Larry Miles from the radio. Of course, that recognition from in town is why I use it. A total of about 18 years on 96.1 KLPX here in town. 81 through 83, then 87 through 2000 on air, and then I got out of the business in 2002. So with that much time on the air in Tucson under that name and on what was a prominent station at the time, there's a lot of name recognition in that. So a little bit of it's marketing, that kind of thing.
How'd you get Larry Miles?
Short story. My real last name, you can spell it 3 ways and pronounce it 3 different ways. So when I got here, my program director at the time, Alan Browning, said, you need to find a new last name. Because I was up against, back at the time, unfortunately now deceased, but his name was Bob Cook. So a real easy to remember name when a very popular night DJ on the competition. So I literally sat in a hotel room upon arrival and went through the phone book and made a list of about 20 different last names and started scratching off the ones that just didn't sound right, and finally ended up with Larry Miles, and that's stuck from there on.
There you go. I was thinking that you switched Yard, part of your last name, to Miles because of some conversion. I'm just kidding.
No, just the sound of it, I went, Larry Miles, and at the time,
good.
so it's 1981, so at the time, the Who, I can see for miles. I'm like, yeah, it's like Larry Miles, like I can see for miles. Oh, yeah, or 12 miles from here to there. And like people use the word every day, single syllable, it worked. And so Larry Miles, the name was born and used.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in real estate from radio?
Through changes in the radio industry, and that's a long story with deregulation in 1996. But by 2002, I kind of came to a point in life where it was like, okay, been in it 20 years. It's been the same thing literally for 20 years. Week after week, it was, Monday night football party out at a bar somewhere, Wednesday night hump night party out at a bar somewhere, Thursday night weekend starter party out at a bar somewhere, and then on Saturday I'm standing in front of one of the many well-known vendors here in town, be it a car dealership or a stereo store or whatever. Hey, come on down to Live Remote, and we're selling whatever they're selling for the day. So after about literally 20 years of the same thing over and over again, and in between you're always waiting for the next big show. It was Van Halen one month and Metallica the next month and Whitesnake the next month. But it just recycled itself. And after 20 years, we went from being 21 to 41, and I'm still doing the same thing. It was like maybe a little time to change things, be a little more family-oriented. My daughter was 13 at that time, so on and so forth. So the jump from radio ended up through a radio associate to the mortgage business. So I was at Home Loan Executives here in town for a few years. And while I was there, we're into 2005, and the whole run-up in property values began. And that led to lowered interest rates at the time as well, led to a whole lot of refinancing that started. So the mortgage business became a pretty interesting, new career, if you will. And in that process, some friends of mine took me to Rocky Point to show me their property. And while down there, I met some folks, and they're like, well, if you're in the mortgage business, why don't you refi people in the States so that they can buy with cash some property in Mexico? And in Rocky Point, they had just announced the new international airport, the highway from San Diego, and other plans for the future. Of course, all the development plans with condos that were being built on Sandy Beach. And it started to become a hotspot for investment for people from Tucson and Phoenix. Property values were increasing, easy to refinance, pull out cash, make it either down payment or full buyout money on a piece of land in Choya Bay, or down payment on these new condos that were being built. It got real busy real fast. And it got to the point where after being down there for a year, just part-time on a weekend, sitting in the office and selling a lot here or there in Choya Bay, all of a sudden it became like shooting fish in a barrel. People would walk in the door on Saturday morning with a beer in one hand and the quad keys in the other one. We've got money, we're buying something today, show us what you got and we'll pick one. Literally.
Really?
And it got to the point where I was doing better on a personal business level, doing the real estate sales or the little lot sales in Choya Bay down there than I was doing mortgages all week up here. The company finally said, either you're coming full time or we're going to give your job to somebody else because we need somebody here full time. It's getting that busy. Made the jump, and for a total of 6 years, I lived in Choya Bay and sold real estate. We sold out all the land in Choya Bay. We realized that SBR Sandy Beach Resorts, as a developer, had to create a true real estate company to interact with the other real estate companies so that we could start cross-selling their listings. We could list property for sale. So that developed the whole real estate business. So we went from selling $20,000 lots in Choya Bay to selling $500,000 condos on Sandy Beach to the $1.2 million homes out on the beachfront in Las Conchas. All of that became available, and I was able to actually work and do the business, selling all kinds of stuff from the Mayan Palace all through Choya Bay down there. And then 2009 came, and the housing market in the U.S. crashed, and all of a sudden nobody had any interest or money to go down there and buy anything anymore because they were just trying to save their primary residence in the United States. And a lot of owners down there simply walked away from either land that they own, even the condos that they had bought. Some people just walked away from them and let them get taken back to get out of having to pay for them so that they could focus on primary residences. So what was going to be a life-ending career, I was going to, I built my house, I was living there, I was going to sell real estate, retire, and basically spend the rest of my life in that house down there. All of a sudden it got cut off. Stayed for 2 years after the market crash thinking it would turn around. It's now almost 8 or 9 years later, and finally the Rocky Point market is starting to come back a little bit. Really? But in the meantime, ended up back in the States a couple of years ago, rebounded here to Tucson, reconnected on a personal level, with much more strength with my daughter and my granddaughter. So that led to, we bought a house together, and in that process, the real estate agent, it's a Keller Williams agent, that worked for us when we bought our house last year, said, if you did real estate in Rocky Point, why don't you get your license and do it here? You have the background, so just parlay that into a personal business here doing real estate, so here I am. And it's about a year later, and number of closings, and starting to get the ball rolling on the real estate business.
So how long have you been back here? You said a year? Back?
2 years. 2 years back in Tucson. I did a call center for a year, and that just didn't end up not working for what I wanted to do long term. And this all happened as a bridge.
Right.
And so I said, go to class, get the real estate license, get into the business, and here I am, a Keller Williams agent, and happy to say that I actually have another closing next week.
Nice.
After just closing one last week.
Sweet. That's
so there's some
news.
business on the books. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you like most about being a real estate agent here in Tucson?
Well, I think the real estate approach, probably for me would be the same anywhere. It's pretty amazing when you are able to connect either a buyer with the house that they have been dreaming about or something that's close to it. I don't think any buyer is going to get the exact house unless they go and predispose themselves to go to a new home builder and say, yes, we want this, we want this, we want this, and they can just about get every detail. But with existing homes, and not to say we can't take people, obviously the business today is such that the builders are welcoming real estate agents to bring them business. But the current situation that I'm in right now, I've got a veteran who has got family members, and we found them a great 4-bedroom house on the east side of town that literally has everything they wanted in it. Fireplace.
Wow.
Actually, this is a double-sided fireplace, an extra room that can be the man cave, and those kinds of things. And it's really fun to make that happen and do so under the guise of integrity, which is really servicing and surveying either a buyer or a seller first, and let the business come later. in any business, there's always somebody that's in it for the quick money. Those of us, and I say us because it's a large majority of the real estate agents, I think are in the business truly to be helping people to get them where they want to go, into the type of property they want to be in, and take the time to make sure that you're doing that correctly. And therefore, integrity is a big word in the business for me and a lot of my fellow agents. And it's a not so, I guess I could use the word mantra with the Keller Williams scenario as well. And it's why Keller Williams has become the nation's #1 real estate company.
Right. I mean, integrity is very important, especially in real estate, because we're dealing with contracts and we're dealing with all kinds of stuff. And if you're trying to short the process and just go after, I want my money now, or if you think about like money and commissions and stuff like that, like some can, that I think that's when your integrity becomes, if you're not staying focused on the client and what's at best interest in being a fiduciary, which
Perfect
is
word.
what you need to be.
Perfect word, and I'm glad you bring that up because one of the things that is the foundation of the real estate industry, the National Association of Realtors, the Arizona Association of Realtors, the Arizona Department of Real Estate, the Tucson Association of Realtors, all of the paperwork, and there's a lot of it, but it's all truly, pretty much legal based. We're not lawyers, but we almost are, because we're dealing with paperwork that one word or one clause can change a whole picture or the responsibility of what's going on there. But one of the things that we stress in our office, and I like to make light of, is that the buyer, what we call the real estate agency disclosure and election statement. It's a document that's part of a number of documents that we have signed by folks that we employ, or that employ us, I should say. But the integrity and the fiduciary duty, you don't get this in most industries. You go to buy a used car, you're not going to have somebody that's signing an agreement about they're your employee,
right?
That kind of thing. They're simply representing the dealership, and they're out to make the best deal they can for their side of the table. In the world of real estate, I know that I handle it this way, and we impart and what's the word I want to? We impart to our other agents that they should do the same. That one of the things that we really want to point out, especially when someone's signing the real estate agency disclosure and election, which is part of the contract to hire us as a listing agent or real estate agent, or even as a buyer's agent, is line 9 of the document, and this is what the customer or the client gets from us. A buyer's broker, which is us, the real estate agent, has the fiduciary duty of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, and accounting in dealings with the buyer. So when you're signing the paperwork for someone to represent you as a real estate agent, that's something that is protecting the client, which is disclosed right in this election form. So again, I as an agent make all my clients aware of this, and a lot of them are like, well, we've never heard anything like that before. And that's other agents not doing or being as thorough with their clients as they possibly could to make them understand what we understand we're responsible for in servicing them. So back to your original point, what's in it for me, or what I enjoy, is this kind of stuff, making people understand that we truly are working for them, that we have these responsibilities, and that we have their best interest in mind. And for me, it's like I worry about the deal up front and worry about whatever's coming out for commission or pay, whatever comes out the forgive the statement, backside, or the back end office, I guess I should say. Whatever comes from the end of the deal, that's what it is. Some people will complain about the commission percentages and so on, but when you start getting into this minutia and the legal aspects of it, that's why we are trained, and that's why we are paid and can command the commissions that we are commanding, because that's the level of integrity we have to go to in order to ensure that both clients, or buyer, seller, whichever you're representing, is protected.
Right, and I think, people can have misconceptions about real estate agents from people that don't necessarily follow those. People have the perception, or some people may have the perception that realtors are overpaid. They don't, but if you're doing your job, and fulfilling all your obligations as a client's fiduciary, as as an agent, it's really not an easy task to do.
No, it's not. And again, there are some people who are like get rich quick thing, and even some of the people who talk about getting into real estate. Oh, the stuff you hear on the radio or see on TV about be a house flipper or this, that, and the other thing. Hey, it's all possible, but there's a whole lot more to it. And unfortunately, some people, when they see these ads, get the misconception that they're just all about the money. Mm-hmm. And it's really not. When you have an agent with the integrity and with the ability to make it known up front that they recognize the importance of the role. And that's
Right.
part of the presentation in either a listing presentation or a buyer meeting, whatever, in meeting with potential clients. That's what I'm big on. And the point that I come from is servicing them. They are the boss, we're an employee, and I will protect them with those fiduciary responsibilities.
Absolutely. So if a buyer or seller is watching this and they're interested in hiring you to represent them here in Tucson, as represent them as a seller or buyer, how do people get a hold of you, Larry?
Well, real simple. The phone call. The easiest thing is LarryMiles.com. Everything, contact information, and the whole website there has virtually everything. It's a website rooted in the Keller Williams system, but everything as far as contacting me or how to get a hold of me is on there. The phone number is 520-275-5626. Phones, it's real estate. Phones on all the time. 10 at night, 2 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon. We get calls all the time.
Yeah.
But again, LarryMiles.com is a starting point, and it's easy to remember. So that's that. And again, having done Mexico, there are a lot of people with interest in Mexico. I am still tied in down there. In fact, I just closed one deal with a partner down there, and another one is another condo that I'm working with right now. We renovated. It's in a Mexican corporation. It's in Mexican probate, and I'm helping that client get through that process to get where he can take control of that corporation since his parents passed away and be able to then sell the property.
Right.
So I can do that in Mexico, and then Keller Williams Southern Arizona is Southern Arizona. It's Green Valley, Sindoita. We have an office in Sierra Vista, which we can either bring someone in on who's a local expert down there. It's all tied in. And Keller Williams, again, is nationwide. Actually, we're global. But nationwide, if someone's going to move out of town, I can find them an agent on the other end before they even start moving who can start looking for the properties that might match up to their need. So call me. My CEO gets a hold of the CEO of the office that's in that local area. We talk about the client, find someone that would be a good fit, and make it work.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Larry, for taking time out of your busy day
Sure
to join
thing.
me on Real Estate Pros this afternoon.
Sure thing.
And we will see you guys on the next episode.
Just remember, LarryMiles.com.
LarryMiles.com. Don't forget it.
MILES. LarryMiles.com. Oh, that's all right.